Happy Wednesday. It is All-Star Race Wednesday. This is the Rich Report, bringing you the richest content across entertainment. Welcome to episode 8. My name is Cameron Richardson. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see our bright, lovely faces this Wednesday afternoon. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you for doing that as well. David Church and Johnny Crane joining, as always. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I thought I'd wear, a hat that represents the most overlooked team and the most underrated team in Major League Baseball. The Arizona Diamondbacks are taking it all this year in this short 60-game season. They're going to surprise a lot of people. Mad Bum is going to be postseason Mad Bum throughout the entire season, and it's going to be beautiful.
Why do I keep letting you introduce yourself? I got to stop that. I just say, hey, here's David.
Because you're a man of the people. You like hearing our voices. If you silence my voice, I will not stand for that.
Mr. Arizona Diamondback down below me, 32-28, somewhere around there, 33-27. Maybe that might be enough. Hey, that might be enough. I'm just telling you.
Hey, these are intros, by the way. We're not into debating yet. So, Johnny, how are you doing? Let's get on with this. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a guest waiting for us.
I'm doing well. Let's go. I just can't. I'm sorry. Let's just get this going.
We're not going to talk about baseball today, unfortunately. So, if you were into MLB talk, that's not going to happen today. But we're going to start out in the NFL world. The Chiefs just extended defensive lineman Chris Jones 4 years, $85 million, which off the jump, just, you never see guys on the defensive line get paid that much at all. And now Myles Garrett might be looking at 5 years, $125 million with the Browns, which is just crazy for any defensive player. But seeing that Jones got extended with a lot of money and Pat Mahomes with a ridiculous extension, will it bode for the future for the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of building this dynasty? Now, there are three key players I looked at who are staying, and I looked at, how long they've got left. Tyreek Hill is on the Chiefs till 2023. Sammy Watkins has the 1-year deal for this year, and then Tyrann Mathieu good until 2022. So, that's good enough. You have talent there. And defensively, they could settle with, B players. They don't need to shoot for elite talent because they can back up the offense, and Pat Mahomes can put up, 30 points a game. We know this. But I will kick it to Johnny first. What do they need to do to keep, build on a potential dynasty here? Because I really think with how good Pat Mahomes is and what we've seen in the last 2 years, that we could be looking at a team that wins 2, 3, maybe even 4 consecutive Super Bowls. So what can they do to sort of keep a group of talent around Mahomes and, not lose out on all these players because of Mahomes' giant contract?
Well, before I get into what they need to address next, when you look at the Mahomes and the Jones contract combined, that's a lot of money they dished out. We're looking at close to upward of $550 million. However, while it seems like a lot, both deals are structured very uniquely in the fact that they allow for a lot more maneuverability and flexibility for future moves. Both players are relatively young, and both players sort of realize that, like you said, Cameron, they could have a dynasty on their hands. They could win 2, 3, maybe 4 Super Bowls together. So when you look at the contracts at a glance, it looks like they don't have that much cap space, but in actuality, they probably could have a little more cap space than you would think. With that said, the next thing I think they should address is not something that they need to address right now. It's not something super urgent, but it's going to be urgent in, say, a year or two. And I think that's going to be their offensive line. Now, their offensive line is pretty solid right now, but the average age of the collective core of their starters is around 28 years old. And 28 is a pretty decent age, but 2, 3 years down the line, when they're upwards of 30, it might get a little bit porous, and it might open up some injury issues. And I think if you give Mahomes, your star quarterback, $500 million plus, you got to protect him. And I think you need to do that by addressing the offensive line. But again, it's not something that's addressed right now. You have to draft them. And then if they're good, then maybe extend them once they take the spots of the current starters. But I think that would be the future thing, because if you're going to build around your offense and Patrick Mahomes, you have to start with the offensive line. I always say that. That's why the offensive line is my favorite position. It helps set up the running back. It helps sets up the wide receiver screens. It helps sets up the quarterback in the pocket. That starts everything. And I think that has to be the next thing they address, whether it's in a year, 2 year, or 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing they have to worry about is making sure that they have enough money and enough, recruiting to actually make sure that they have a good, solid offensive line for, a good amount of years to make those Super Bowl runs. Because if you're paying, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL over $450 million, then you're going to have to protect him, because if he gets hurt, then you're just wasting money at that point. And Pat Mahomes obviously deserved to get paid that much. Pat Mahomes has been, one of the most dynamic and the most, has taken the league by storm at this point. I consider, the battle between the best QB in the NFL right now between him and maybe Lamar Jackson of the Ravens. So, but the biggest thing with Chris Jones signing is that's $85 million. They're going to have issues in the next few years because of those contracts. So, like you said, they are structured pretty decently, and they still have, years left on Tyrann Mathieu. Sammy Watkins is coming back for a year. Tyreek Hill is pretty much locked up. But when those times are over, who's going to be the one that has to, bite the bullet and not resign and move on? In my eyes, I think it's going to be Travis Kelce. I think if you look at, taking Sammy Watkins out of it, he's a little bit older. He still has some upside, but I think he's the guy to walk regardless. But if you look at the, big four or big five, you want to say, Pat Mahomes, Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Tyrann Mathieu. Of those five, I would say Travis Kelce is the one to let go, because, Tyrann Mathieu is a once in a lifetime kind of safety where he just has this ability where it comes speed, tackling, endurance, heart. He's always going after. He has the nickname Honey Badger for a reason. He's always going after the ball. He's always going to tackle. And I think he's the kind of guy to keep. Tyreek Hill's the fastest guy in the NFL. He's even looked to make the Olympic team to run, the 100-meter dash. He's that fast. And you have to keep a guy like that. Pat Mahomes, obviously, lock him up like that. Chris Jones, a game-changing defensive player. Keep him. But the biggest issue is they're going to have to make the decision of who do these guys that we love are we okay with letting go? And in my eyes, I think it's going to be Travis Kelce in the next few years.
Now I'll just ask this before we move on. Can the Chiefs build a dynasty to where it's not just like the Patriots where it's, they get to Super Bowls and they lose, one, win two? Can the Chiefs win 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 in a row? It seems unreasonable, but I mean, the Chiefs have done crazy stuff. I mean, if they can overcome a 24-point deficit in a playoff game, they can pretty much do anything now. So how far can the Chiefs push this, potential dynasty?
I think they can push it to at least, 2-3 years, because, I mean, they're going to be a team that's always going to be in the playoff conversation at this point. They built a great foundation with Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid as the head coach. So it makes sense to they would be in that conversation. I think they'll at least have, 2 more Super Bowl runs. I don't know if I want to, completely bet on them winning, but they're at least going to be in the conversation for, the next 4 or 5 years. It just depends on how good the team meshes and how much the system really works. If they take the mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then there should be fine. They should at least win, maybe 2 more Super Bowls. But it's going to be at the point where they have to make sure they're all on the same page and they're doing things right, and then injuries aside, everyone stays healthy, they can make, deep runs for the next at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, the sky is definitely the limit for the Chiefs. I mean, when you compare the potential Chiefs dynasty to, say, the Patriots dynasty, I don't want to get into the argument of who is the better quarterback here, but when you compare Mahomes in his prime, potentially in his prime, to Tom Brady when he was in his prime, I believe Mahomes has a lot more upside outside the pocket, and he doesn't really have that, quote, system quarterback feel to him. I feel as if he can do a lot more with his legs, and he can do a lot more across his body than I think Tom Brady could. Now, to be fair, the AFC will be pretty stacked in the upcoming year. So maybe 3 to 4 to 5 Super Bowls, like, say, the Patriots did, that might be a stretch. But again, the sky's the limit, and the quarterback is the person and the player that starts that dynasty. And I think that with Mahomes, he gives everybody else around him that much better, especially on offense. If you give him any wide receiver, any tight end, any running back, he's going to make them very productive, I think, as long as they can catch whatever he throws. If that's the case, I think his offense and Andy Reid's offense can definitely contend with the Ravens of the world, potentially the Bengals of the world when Joe Burrow gets more weapons around him, and so on and so forth. So the dynasty, I definitely think it could stretch to 1 to 2 more Super Bowls. But again, we'll have to see as the AFC develops and unfolds in the future seasons. But Mahomes at the helm, they can do anything.
We're going to be joined by a very special guest right now. A very special one. We all know him. We all love him. And that will be William Hopkins. It is good to see you. We haven't seen this guy since March when COVID struck. Oh man, it's good to see you, Will. How are you doing today?
You know what? I passed a COVID test on Monday. We thought I had it. It turned out to just be strep throat. So I'm very happy to be here and, back at full health. So
I was gonna say, are you in a hospital right now? Because
I got called into work, and I told them the one condition was that I had to have 45 minutes free in the middle of my shift to do it in a quiet place to work. So, here we are.
Heck yeah, stick it to the man. I love it.
We're talking some Premier League. Now that Manchester City is reinstated for Champions League play, it is now a hectic run to the finish for the top 4 between Chelsea, Leicester, Man United. Throw Wolves in there as well. It looks like Wolves is about to win, so that'll pull them to within 1 point of Leicester and Man United. So, Will, I'll start with you. How do we see this top 4? Who gets these last 2 spots in the Premier League to get to Champions League next year?
Well, so Wolves having that 1 point is going to be big. It's a lot different than a 2-point gap because it means that a draw pulls them into that situation, or a draw pulls them into a Champions League spot and that sort of a situation. Really, the 3 teams that are in this scrap are Leicester, Manchester United, and Wolves. Chelsea's going to play Wolves on the last day, and Man United's going to match up with Leicester on the last day. So there are a lot of incoming matchups that are going to mean a lot to the table. Personally, I think that the top 4 that we have right now is going to stay unless Leicester and Man United match up, or unless that Leicester and Man United matchup goes in Man United's favor, purely because if you look at Leicester, the 4th spot is Leicester City. And if you look at their schedule, there aren't the 2 remaining games against Sheffield United. I don't see them dropping that, especially at home. Then they travel to Tottenham, and I don't see them dropping that with the form that Spurs have come back with. Mourinho's obviously not been happy with how his team has come back from this quarantine. So I really think that it's going to come down to that last day. I also don't see United dropping points. And so I think Wolves is really going to have to go through the Europa League. They have a quarterfinal matchup with Olympiacos coming up. I think their journey to the Champions League will be through the Europa League.
When you look at what is left, when you look at Chelsea, they play Liverpool, they play the Wolves. Other than Chelsea, though, even though that's a tough stretch for Chelsea, I think Chelsea is really the only team in this bunch where they have everything under their control, in the sense that they can control their own destiny. When you look at Wolves, when you look at Man United, even when you look at Leicester, there's sort of some controlling factors there that could definitely sway them either in the Champions League or in the league below. And when I look at the 4th team, so I'm going to assume that Chelsea pulls out the victory somehow and gets into the Champions League. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to beat both Wolves and Liverpool, but again, destiny's sort of in their own favor, because if one of the other 3 clubs lose, they can afford a draw and still potentially get in. The other teams really can't afford a draw if they lose. So with that in regard, I think Chelsea will get in. The other team I would really go with right now, I would say Man United, just because I think that their offensive output right now is a lot more consistent and a lot more projectable than, say, Leicester City's offense. When you look at Martial and Rashford and what they've done with that offense with United over the past few matches, it's been really explosive. Both of them have 16 goals on the year for their club that ties their team roster. So when you look at that duo compared to the duo that Leicester City could potentially put up, I think that duo is much more younger, has a lot more movement to it, and it has a lot more goal power than, say, the Leicester City duo could potentially do. So I think I'm going to go with Man United. But again, it all comes down to what the final day brings. Like you said, Will, a lot could go down, but I think Chelsea and Man United will eventually take those final 2 spots.
Well, so I think a big part of that last day is that Man United needs it to be out of their hands. They need to not be able to screw it up if you're Man United. Because if you look at the stars of that team, outside of David De Gea, you have Harry Maguire, who's never seen himself in a high-pressure situation like this in club football. Obviously, he's played, in a semifinal of a World Cup. You have Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's never been in any sort of high-pressure situation, playing most of his career with Crystal Palace, and they didn't really have themselves in a relegation battle near the end of last year. Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, and a name you left off, Mason Greenwood, has obviously come back with a vengeance. But I really think that the veteran leadership like Jamie Vardy for Leicester City, who have been there, done that, they've won the league before, I really think that could make the difference on that last day, because Man United just doesn't have that. De Gea is obviously a veteran and he's obviously a great goalkeeper, but he's not a very good leader when it comes to this team. I think that's where I would see Man United dropping points. Is I think they could lose to Leicester on the final day if they don't find a way to create separation between themselves and the Foxes.
I agree with them totally. I am all for Man United not getting in that top 4. But I'll ask you before we let you go, what were your thoughts on Manchester City getting reinstated after originally they were banned for 2 years?
I saw it coming. I'm not happy about it. It's what soccer is becoming, honestly, is you can buy 2 of the best players at every position. And, obviously outside of left back, Man City has managed to do that pretty well. But I think this team, it's what you expect. They've managed to find ways to get around financial fair play. And I don't think that there's any real way that they've been totally illegal. I think they've been really good about, inputting sponsorships that have a fishy amount of money, but at the same time, it's not illegal. Technically, it does get around the rules. So I'll give it to Man City that they've done a good job on that front. It's better than their left back core right now.
Will be joining us on the show throughout, on different occasions. I can't talk today, obviously. We will leave a link for all of Will's articles that he's done for our site, and we'll leave his social media as well. Make sure to follow him. He's a very funny guy. Very, very funny guy. So
Wow.
Definitely make sure to check him out. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you when we bring you on the next time.
Thank you for having me. Hope to see you guys in Flagstaff soon.
Moving on, it is a big night for NASCAR. That is the All-Star Race for the first time at Bristol Motor Speedway, and NASCAR is throwing out all the stops. We got underglow under the cars. We got the choose cone, just everything you could want. It's going to be an absolutely crazy night. It starts with the Open at 7 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1, and then the main event, the All-Star Race, starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Johnny, we'll start with you. What are you looking forward to most in this race, and who do you got winning?
Underglow on the cars. Now, when Cameron brought this up to me initially, about a week ago, I'm like, seems like a nightclub kind of race thing. However, I actually really like it. And cueing Denny Hamlin here, we're getting an all-star race at a short track, which is great. And I think that leads to a lot of possibilities, a lot more downforce and a lot more passing, maybe some wrecks. But, I think it's going to be very exciting. And I think that whatever happens with the underglow, with the choose cone, there are a lot of options here that NASCAR could do to get more fans and viewership in. I mean, getting underglow on the cars, different colors. I mean, that's a spectacle sight. I mean, you see a lot of bright colors underneath a car. That'd be pretty cool. And when you add that to Bristol, I think that if Bristol really hits a home run here and they get a really good All-Star race, it's possible that maybe this could be a site for maybe a future All-Star race in the future. Maybe, who knows? But I think that if you can get a great race here, maybe that'll tell NASCAR, low downforce seems like a great idea. Maybe we should put this in other tracks. Just an idea. But for my winner, I think I'm going to go with a driver that unfortunately got the wrong end of the COVID testing stick a couple weeks ago. Jimmy Johnson. You know, everything came out that, oh, well, he had COVID, but then he did the tests again. It came back negative. Unfortunately, that broke his consecutive racing streak, which was really, really high. And I think this, even though it's not a race that counts, it's not going to be a race for points or anything. But when you look at Johnson's finish at Bristol on May 31st, he finished in third. And, oh no, where did he finish?
It was up there, but you know, he was in contention for the win. But I still think he pulled out a top 5 if I remember correctly. But
Yeah.
Because
So anyway,
that was when Logano and Elliott took each other out. So I think he still finished in the top 5.
Yeah, he finished in the top 5. Yeah. I'm good now. See, I can't think today either like you can. It's fine, okay? I think Johnson, you know, he has a little bit of a monkey on his back. I think he wants to come out angry. Even though the race doesn't count, I think that there's enough passing and there's still enough maneuverability in that car for Hendrick that I think he could definitely make a run. And even though he's starting in the latter teams, I think if any action happens ahead of him, I think he can definitely capitalize and take that inside corner and get out of that action and come out on top. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Johnson. Retirement tour. The retirement tour hasn't really gone the way he's wanted this year due to COVID and due to testing for COVID. But I think he's going to pull out this win. I think he's going to try to get one spot of glamour on his retirement tour this year because he hasn't really gotten that yet. So I'm going to go with Johnson.
Yeah, the underglow thing is actually something that's really, really intriguing because, I mean, it brings, you know, new audiences like, oh, look, that looks super cool. And it just came out today that they've released some of what it's going to look like on the track. So I'll just pull it up on my phone real quick so y'all can see it. But that's what they're going to be, the underglow is going to be looking like.
And I thought you got some like insider footage, but no, you pulled out the best scene from Cars though. That David, the usual troll, saying the NLS once runs through Arizona, and now he pulls out a scene from Cars. Just lovely stuff. Always the professional David Church.
All right, but in all seriousness, I'm super excited for this race. It's going to be super fun. It brings in new dynamics and new ways to kind of watch racing and also look at racing. And for my pick, I'm going to pick the guy who won Bristol this year, even though it was kind of a gimme win because of Joey Logano and Chase Elliott trying to run each other off the Bristol course. I picked Brad Keselowski because Brad Keselowski, you know, he's able to take advantage of the situations. He ran really well last Sunday in Kentucky. I think he definitely can, you know, pull something out and earn some money and earn me some money as well. So we'll hope that this happens, and we'll hope for the best come tonight.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for an aggressive race, a race where drivers are going to make each other angry, this is the one here. And what team has been plowing over drivers week after week after week? I think you got to look at one of the Penske guys. Keselowski, obviously, we won at Bristol. Let's not forget that he pretty much dumped Jimmy Johnson. I still blame Keselowski even to this day because he wasn't going to make the corner. Had he pushed it, he would still been at the yellow line or below it, and it just would have been an absolute mess. And yeah, I think you're going to have to move guys because it is a short, you know, it's a short race. I believe the open is 35 laps in the first stage and then 35 again in the second, and the last stage is 15, and then the main event is 55, 35, 35, 15. So if you're starting mid-pack to the back, you're going to have to move your way up quickly, and that's going to mean you're going to have to move guys, which could be very reminiscent of old Bristol from the early and mid 2000s, which we're going, if this ends up being a one hot night 2.0, which is, you know, it goes back to the 90s All-Star Race, which watch that final lap. It is absolutely bonkers. But yeah, I think we are definitely in for something completely special tonight. I am really looking forward to it. However, I gotta go with Team Chevy here. Kurt Busch always shows up at Bristol. You never see him do bad at Bristol, and I think tonight will be his launch into the second half of the season and what's going to make him a real threat for the semifinals of the playoffs and to maybe even get to the championship four. But I do think he wins this race and that he will pick up a regular season win to solidify his position in the playoffs. But it's going to be fun. All of it begins 7 p.m. Eastern on FS1. It's going to be one hell of a night. We're going to close this episode. We don't just talk about sports here. Like it reads there, if my finger would show up there. We're entertainment, not just sports. So we're going to do a little fun thing here, talk about our favorite music of 2020 so far. We're kind of at that halfway point, a little bit past. And so I'm going to start with Johnny here because I'm interested. Because Johnny, you don't really talk about music with Johnny. We do when we FaceTime our good old friend Sean Clark on occasion. But Johnny doesn't really talk about music, so we're just makes fun of Sean's music as well. But Johnny, we're gonna go to you. What's been some of your favorite stuff to listen to so far in 2020?
So I'm going to go a little bit against the grain here. I sort of have an idea of what you and David are going to go with genre-wise. I might be wrong, but I'm not going to go the genre direction that Sean would usually go. Kygo. Nothing against Kygo, but it's just I'm fine. I'm not going to say that I'm a metalhead. I'm not going to say that at all. However, I'm going to go a little bit of a throwback here with the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne. He's getting up there in age, but hey, he's still coming out with music. And he came out with a metal album this year in 2020, Ordinary Man. Now, when you think of Ozzy Osbourne and all of his exploits he has done over the years, you wouldn't really think a title of an album he would do would be called Ordinary Man. He's anything but ordinary. He did a lot of drinking parties when he was young. He had a little bit of an incident at the Alamo, if we all know that. But when you listen to this album, what I like about it is that it incorporates a lot of modern themes to it, and it also has some guest artists on it as well. It has Elton John in it. It has Post Malone. I know you're not a big fan of Post Malone, Cameron, if I can recall, but he is in that. And I think adding these
just because I was mild to an album doesn't mean I dislike an artist, okay? Gosh, it was a 5. That doesn't mean I hate the artist.
5 out of 10? That's a 50. Anyway, it incorporates a lot of modern artists to it. It has that sort of a techno feel to it. And when you listen to all the songs, he sort of, every single album sort of has a story that goes with it. And Ozzy Osbourne has definitely a story to tell. And his sort of the irony of the stories is that he wants to be ordinary, or he thinks he's an ordinary person given all of the history he has. It's a little bit ironic, but it's definitely a nice listen. I think even though maybe metal isn't the genre many people go to start when they want to listen to music, it's definitely an album if you want to have a little bit of a throwback feel with the Prince of Darkness himself. So that's been the album I've been really liking.
For me, Johnny may not want to call himself a metalhead, but I'm definitely a metalhead. I basically listen to anything that I think sounds good. So I did have 3 albums coming into this topic, but now I have 4 because I remembered how much I liked this album, and it did come out in 2020. Trivium's What the Dead Men Say. Trivium has been in the game for so long now. They're basically a mainstay at this point, and it's a big kind of contrast to what they did on their last album. Their last few albums have been, kind of more towards the metal, the screamo kind of thing, which I'm a decent fan of. Like I can get to it, but the biggest thing is just finding the guttural guitar licks and the just choppy moves like that. That's what I really like out of metal music. I when I was about 13, I got into System of a Down and Slipknot, and that really changed my spectrum on the metal scene. So Trivium, definitely, I put them in that conversation. That was a great album for me. The next one I'm going to say is Run the Jewels, RTJ4. Love Run the Jewels. Killer Mike and LP are an absolute dynamite pair. They do not care. They're going to stand for what they believe in. They're going to preach what they believe in. They're going to preach what they think is right, and they're going to preach what they think is wrong. And they definitely did that in RTJ4. Killer Mike going off against, systemic racism and systemic richness and the treatment of the poor and how we need to take care of each other. and LP backing him up with his great lyrics and his great flow and style. Love Run the Jewels, love what they do, and RTJ4 is just another example of how well they mesh together and how much they can do. The next one's going to be The Weeknd's After Hours. I did enjoy The Weeknd. That album it was a really different feel this time around. It kind of had, those 80s synth kind of vibes sometimes in some of the songs. And The Weeknd's voice, is probably one of the best in the game right now. He literally, his voice is it's a God-given ability and a God-given talent. So that one I super enjoyed. I'll throw it on whenever I'm in the car. The next one I'm going to say, and I don't think Cam's going to like this one, but I am a fan of Joyner Lucas's ADHD album. You know what? Okay, stop. You know what? What, Cam? What? Please tell me. What's up?
I got no disrespect if you like a certain thing, but let's just say that will be on a top 10 list by the end of the year, but probably not the one you want, okay?
Whatever. See, I love Joyner Lucas. Joyner Lucas is great at what he does. He, is able to have that decent flow where he has, the speed at some points and is able to actually show a message as well. I like it. It's a good album. I enjoy it.
Hey, if you enjoy stuff, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you can't enjoy this. Like, I'm not that kind of guy.
Well, I'd hope so, because then you'd be a dictator, and we don't want a dictator. So,
yeah, like David said, I love RTJ4 and I love After Hours as well. Great. I think that's The Weeknd's best project by far. By far. It's been a great year of music for women, and mostly, these are sort of the underappreciated artists as well, because I haven't heard of these women, some of them, until this year, really. And my top two, which I just said I haven't heard of until this year, Jessie Ware and Laura Marling. First off, Jessie Ware, What's Your Pleasure? Total nod to 80s synth pop. It's got R&B, funk, it's a 70s disco record as well. Just everything that I grew up listening to is all over this record, and even there's really nothing bad at all. It's all great. All this, like, even the songs that I wasn't really warm to are still good, but every other song that I liked was just so incredible that it balances out those songs. It just made those good songs just, okay, this doesn't really live up to just how awesome the other 10 tracks were on this record. And it was my second 10 out of 10 I've ever given. Obviously, last year's Lil Sim's Gray Area project was the other one. And then we get a very mellow, very heartfelt album for Laura Marling, Song for Our Daughter, which is essentially messages given to, her future daughter. And then it closes with, just a lovely ballad for you that is sort of just encompasses everything that it is given to, I think the song is meant for for when she's pregnant, not really so when the baby is, a toddler or anything like that. I think it's more so like getting prepared for that and all that. But yeah, great stuff. Freddie Gibbs, Alfredo, phenomenal record. The Alchemist laying just these classy, smooth instrumentals throughout the record. Tyler, the Creator, might be stepping back into the rap a little bit. Obviously Flower Boy and Igor were more on the R&B, or on the pop side, is a little bit more singing, a lot more vocal manipulations in that. But maybe we could be getting some of the old Tyler, but, just a lot higher quality and a lot more, let's say, a lot less dumber skits and a lot of, themes in a future Tyler record. Mac Miller, The Circles album. Incredible. It's hard to listen to knowing that he's gone, but it was a great goodbye. And then finally, the Denzel Curry Kenny Beats little 20-minute record Unlocked. Phenomenal stuff. Denzel Curry. I'll say this out too. Active rappers right now, I think top two have to be Freddie and Denzel Curry. They remain active and they're dropping great stuff after great stuff so far in 2020, and I'm looking forward to what they're doing in the future. That will do it for this episode of The Rich Report. All our social medias will be in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Timestamps will be available for everything, so if you don't want to listen to our music taste, you can listen to everything before. For Johnny, David, I am Cam Richardson. We will see you in the next episode. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and subscribe if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we will see you on Friday with the next episode. Thanks for listening.